when we go to the supermarkets or the newsagent or wherever, the pub, we'd be able to buy those poppies. It's different this way. The importance, though, that people donate online.
Oh, absolutely. Because of the virus, all the older generation haven't been able to get out and about. They've got to be sheltered, shielded. They can't go to train stations where they normally go, supermarkets, wherever it is that they've sold their poppies year on year. They can't get out, and also there's not the footfall, so people aren't going through those places to be able to purchase a poppy as they pass by, which is very, very sad. But the work still goes on. The work that the Legion does doesn't end here, so it needs to be kept going. It needs to be funded, and I know everybody's been asked for money all the time, and at this moment people have got a lot less than they used to having. But at the end of the day, we need to be able to make sure that the donations do come in, because a lot of those people are in dire straits and have been for many years.
And for those lastly, the listeners who are not familiar, Simon, with the work they do, just explain what the Legion does.
Oh my gosh, it goes from helping families' children, helping veterans who are disabled, who have living condition problems, people who are homeless from the military service, right the way through to having other types of dependencies because of mental health stresses. The list goes on and on. There's care, there's the poppy factory, where they actually make the poppies, but they're disabled veterans who live there that continually make the poppies all year round. It's trying to retain a normality in people's lives, which seems to be the big word this year, normality. Whether it's new or the old lived normality that these people have.
Simon, a word on the Daily Mirror idea that on November the 8th, on the Sunday, we all stand on our doorstep for a 2-minute silence, much as we were doing, not silence, of course, in the NHS, we're making noise, but because many of us can't go to the Senate, can't go to ceremonies or the cenotaph in central London. What of that idea?
Oh, I think it's a wonderful idea. At least you can show your respect and your support, and you're honouring those people who came before. The military is not about, as people keep trying to say, there's a group, a hardcore group of people say that we're all about going to war and wanting to hurt people. It's not the case. We're trying to protect people. This is the modern armed forces. We're trying to protect those people who can't protect themselves, help those that can't help themselves. And there's a lot of humanitarian work that goes on, and people do die in the course of that. So people don't realise that as well. So it's just about paying honour and respect to those people who've given everybody their right to self-determination, given them their democracy, and allowed them to retain their freedoms, albeit that some things during this lockdown you don't feel like you've got it.
I know the feeling. Good to speak with you again. Simon Weston, thank you, Falklands veteran, former Welsh Guardsman, talking about the importance. You can go to the British Legion website and be sure to donate. That Daily Mirror idea seems an absolute corker to me, that as we did, although the opposite, of course, make as much noise as we could for the NHS. What about that silence? Because it is sadly a Remembrance Sunday like no other. How many times have we said that? Shall we talk about this lockdown? John in Hackney, you have your doubts too, I understand. Is that correct? Good morning.
I agree with you completely, Nick. I'm bang on your side. Having a lockdown is completely stupid. We're listening to a lunatic and two other lunatics by the side of him. And the scenarios, none of the facts, they're all the mumfolds of figures. It's absolutely ridiculous. The economy's going to be not for six. You've got a test and trace system that costs 12 billion, none of it works. Yeah. Everyone who's working in it are laughing at it, and it's farcical. 5 persons last week, one at Bexley, one at Greenwich, one at Hastings. They all had no people in them. Yeah. A situation where it's all being run by idiots, and we're allowing it, and these jobs are being given out to these idiots who are making up as house arrest for a month for no reason.
I was run the Twickenham Rugby Stadium now is part of it is a massive testing site, and I was by it on the weekend. There was nobody there either. It does seem strange. You can of course talk about the potential if we need it. John, thank you for your support. Dan in L Street. Dan, you're nervous about lockdown, or you support it?
Well, no, I'm neither nervous nor do I support it. I just believe that the leadership of the country should offer more granular information on how we can go about our lives over the next month. For example, I don't understand why Boris keeps mentioning that construction workers and builders
Oh, yeah.
the example of people that should go back to work, why are they any less contagious than office users being a COVID-secure workspace? That doesn't seem to make sense to me.
Well, open air, sorry to talk over you, they would argue because most of the time those men and women are in the open air is what they'd say.
I disagree. Are you telling me that they're all...
No, I'm sorry, I'm only saying what they'd say, matey. No, I agree.
I disagree with them. I
Yeah.
disagree with what they're saying. But why should you make an exception for them when actually those builders and construction workers, as hard as they work and as thankful as we are for them, they are still handing materials to one another. They're still working in the same vehicles, using the same machinery.
I agree.
would say much more likely to be contagious in a workspace, all right, not in a city centre, but in a local type environment.
Totally agree with you, and it doesn't seem to make a lot of sense there. Dan, I have to end there. Thank you for your input. I think, like John as well, Dan, you're on the same page on COVID. But let's have a word about tomorrow and tomorrow morning from 5, a Nick Ferrari at breakfast special on the US election.
We need help to beat Sleepy Joe Biden? I don't think so. Now, Sleepy Joe would say the unemployment rate in the great state of Ohio. Oh, Joe, you're in South Carolina, it's not Ohio. Okay. Could you imagine if I said just a small fraction of the mistakes he makes, which are unbelievable? Every speech.
I think the one thing the president doesn't want to do from the very beginning is face me, because I will beat him, period. I'm not here to call out his lies. Everybody knows he's a liar.
Listen, China ate your lunch, Joe.
You're the worst president America has ever had.
Hey,
Come
Joe,
on.
but you
I just
agree
want to
that
make
you're
sure.
Joe, you're the liar.
I want to make sure.
You did last in your class, not first in your class.
I want to make
Mr.
sure.
President, can you let him finish, sir?
He doesn't know how to do that.
Well, it's all finished now. They're voting, and you will have that special tomorrow morning from 5. The talking is over. I'm done for today. James O'Brien's the other side of the news here on LBC. I'm with you tomorrow morning from 5. Couch. Meanwhile, until then, stay safe.
Don't forget to set your alarm, will you? It's coming up to 10 o'clock, a perfectly reasonable time to start work, in my opinion, and you are listening to James O'Brien on LBC, where we will no doubt cast an eye over unfolding events in America, although for the gazillionth time in the last 4 years I find myself reflecting on those famous words from Clockwise. It's not the despair that gets me, Laura, it's the hope. I can deal with the despair, so we shall look at both this morning. I want to begin, though, with a proper dig into the question of why public support for the second lockdown is really remarkably strong in a country still dominated by 52-48. It's over 70, but not in much of the media.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 10 o'clock, the Prime Minister says the UK stands united with the people of Austria against terror after 4 people were killed in an attack in Vienna. Authorities say a suspect, who may have had an Islamist motive, was shot dead by police after he opened fire last night. They're still trying to work out whether further attackers may be on the run. Shots were fired at 6 different locations in the city centre. Everyone living and working in Liverpool is being promised access to repeat testing for coronavirus, even if they don't have symptoms. The city's been chosen for a pilot of England's first mass testing regime. 2,000 armed forces personnel will help to coordinate the trial from Friday. Liverpool City Mayor Joe Anderson is hoping it will mean restrictions can be relaxed in time for Christmas.
That's the goal, that's what we're trying to achieve, and that's why we welcome the opportunity to work with armed personnel and personnel who have expertise with our own city council officials and public health officials to try to win this battle against the virus.
It's election day in the United States. Americans are deciding whether to give Donald Trump 4 more years in the White House or replace him with Joe Biden. National polls give the Democratic candidate a clear lead, but our political correspondent Ben Kentish, who's in Washington, says there's still lots of uncertainty.
Democrats in particular are so scarred by what happened in 2016 when those polls proved to be wrong, that nobody wants to make a concrete prediction here. And there have been a couple of polls just recently that suggested things were narrowing in states like Iowa and Pennsylvania that just could could, if that trend was replicated, then mean quite a good night for Donald Trump.
The Wales football manager, Ryan Giggs, has denied allegations of assault after he was arrested at the weekend. It's understood he was questioned on suspicion of attacking a woman after police were called to his home. Greater Manchester police say a woman in her 30s sustained minor injuries and that a 46-year-old man was released on bail. London's mayor has confirmed City Hall is moving. The Greater London Authority will leave its current home by Tower Bridge next year and relocate to a new site in the Royal Docks. Sadiq Khan says the move will save £61 million over 5 years, allowing him to protect services. In the city a short time ago, the FTSE 100 was up 90 points at 57.45. The pound's buying $1.29 and €1.11. And the weather, some heavy rain clearing eastwards this morning, then a mixture of sunny spells and showers. These heaviest and most frequent in the west. Windy for many and feeling cold. A high of 12 degrees. From Global's newsroom, I'm Simon Conway.
Businesses. Time is running out. From the 1st of January next year, if you do business with Europe, you're going to have to follow new rules. So there are definite actions we all need to take now. More to do, I know, but it's work that won't be wasted. It needs doing no matter what. And we haven't got long. Less than 3 months and counting. Check what your business needs to do now at gov.uk/transition. Check, change, go.
From Global, leading Britain's conversation with James O'Brien.
Hello, it's 3 minutes after 10 and you're listening to James O'Brien on LBC, where we will shortly get stuck into the second lockdown conversation as opposed perhaps to controversy, because I want to try to find a way to examine it with clarity, a proper understanding, and possibly an attempt to resist the urge which we all feel to adopt a position, and how many of us are really qualified to adopt a position and then furiously defend it. I realised, preparing for today's programme, do I keep getting the clockwise quote wrong? I know I got it wrong yesterday. I actually paused today before sharing it with you again. I thought I got it right, but I could be, or we shall find it. I generally trust, I don't want to say experts because that sounds like I'm insulting you if you disagree with me, but I was trying to think of an example that would slightly undermine my position, and I think the best examples are probably thalidomide and other drugs. The idea that you did what you thought was right for the right reasons and it was wrong happens so rarely in our lives that I don't know that it disproves the wisdom of generally trusting experts, but I thought it would be important to try to find something before we start that conversation where you can do what you think is right for all the right reasons and end up doing something horribly wrong. And I'll just get that out there now so I don't forget. I want to take a moment, obviously, to reflect upon events in Vienna overnight. When I was trying, in my clumsy way, to cover the reporting to the Labour Party's problems with anti-Semitism by the Equality and Human Rights Commission last week, I shared with you, not for the first time, but I think for the most important time, one of the phrases that changed my attitude to all manner of issues, and it's also picked up by the Tom Stoppard play Leopoldstadt, which was one of the last things I saw before the last lockdown started. It's a play of uncommon power and beauty, and it tracks a Jewish family as Nazism rose. And the phrase for me was always, because we were talking about Israel, that was the point I was trying to make. I was trying to share with you some of the breakthroughs I'd made in the understanding of the issue, in the hope of helping people who were perhaps tying themselves in knots, seeking to defend various individuals from accusations of anti-Semitism, and not understanding why the state of Israel holds this different status from almost anywhere else in the world, almost anywhere else in history, because it is the place to which Jewish people flee when it starts happening again. And as a non-Jew, that sense of inevitability of it starting to happen again is something that you really need to work to understand. Empathy comes naturally to many of us in many circumstances, but in a sort of intellectual empathy where you have to somehow inhabit not the shoes, which is the most popular metaphor, but the head and the heart of somebody whose life experiences you can never fully emulate. And that phrase haunts me. And when you hear, I don't know how you picked up the news last night, but when you read about Jewish people in Vienna being told not to wear their yarmulkes, not to wear any evidence of their religious affiliations, that phrase, when it starts happening again, just resonated. It went through me actually like a shiver, just as I was scrolling through social media. And we'll keep an eye on events there. Any developing news, of course, we will share with you. But I just want to remind you of that. I just want to remind you of that, because it's horrible. And attacks upon places of worship, as we said last week after the attack on the cathedral in France and the attack on the mosque in New Zealand, attacks on places of worship are particularly harrowing, because it makes everybody inside, everybody who worships, everybody with a faith, a peaceful faith, feel under threat from people who aren't peaceful, feel under threat from violence. And I just remind you, and we won't stay on this subject because I think we probably all mostly agree, and if you don't agree with me, I don't have the energy today to talk to you on this subject, because there are only two sides in these conflicts and battles. There are people who are either excusing or comfortable with the notion of killing because you think you're fundamentally better than somebody else, whether it's because of the religion, or whether it's because of ethnicity, or whether it's because of some other curious historical affiliation, whether it's because you back, he backs that pretender to the throne, whatever ludicrous rationale there may be for thinking that you are your life is fundamentally worth more than mine, you are near everyone. What they want us to do. That's what they all want us to do. And so we want to find out what was happening in Vienna. I just want to leave you with those two thoughts. The first is that Israel is the place. It took me years to understand this, and I'm glad I did. Let's just leave it at that. In the end, better late than never, eh? Israel is where Jewish people go when it starts happening again, and it does appear as if a synagogue was one of the focuses of the attacks in Vienna last night. And the second thing to say is that there are only two positions on this. Either you are repelled by the very notion of supremacism, fascism, whatever you want to call it, the idea that your life is worth more or less than another life according to your loyalties or affiliations or statistics, and those of us who reject that ideology completely. And difficult perhaps sometimes to remember. 10 after 10 is the time, okay? I would, and as Joe reminds us, it is odd that the Uyghur Muslim scandal unfolding in China, as I reference the Holocaust, he suggests that there might be another one happening right now, and that doesn't get the coverage that it merits or deserves. We will do our bit, Joe, but you make a pertinent point. So, in a slightly different I said to you at the top of the programme this morning, I generally, and it's weird this, because I was one of those kids who thought he was a rebel, you know, like,
that's it for now, folks. Just going for coffee.